I have brought along my brand new harp, which is right behind us, and I'm so excited. I've only had it for 1 day, so it is brand new. It really depends what kind of harpist you are and what kind of harpist you want to be and what you want to do on that harp. We don't have a standardized instrument. There's millions of different combinations, which means it's one that fits like a glove for you.
And it just comes down to how you feel about the harp and do you love it?
Yeah, I think it's so important to just have that moment where you just like, this is the one.
Yeah. But I'd fallen in love with it. I loved it. But I had to take that time to tell myself, actually, you are a professional harpist. You absolutely deserve the harp that you've fallen in love with. You can afford it. You've talked to your husband about it. You've thought about all of these things. You deserve the harp. And you guys all deserve the harp that you fall in love with as well. Welcome to the How to Harp podcast, where your harp, your journey are always front and centre. I'm Heather Downie, harpist and founder of How to Harp, your online space for expert guidance and endless inspiration. Each week, we are here to empower, inspire and encourage you, whether you're just beginning or many years into your harp adventure. From chats with world-class professionals to real stories from everyday harpists to practical tips you can use right away. This podcast is all about helping you feel happy, confident and fulfilled with your harp. This is episode 10 of the How to Harp podcast, and today Angela and I are sitting down together in person for a change to talk about something every harpist faces sooner or later: buying a new harp. Angela has been up here in Scotland this week to collect her brand new Dusty Strings harp. So we thought this would be the perfect time to share our top 5 tips for picking your perfect harp. We talk about everything from ergonomics and string types to sound, extras, and that all-important question: how do you know when you've found the one? Whether you're dreaming of your first harp or thinking about upgrading, I hope this chat helps you feel a little more confident and maybe even a bit inspired in your own harp search. Hello everyone and welcome, and Angela's here in person. We're 3D together. It's so exciting.
It's so good to be together in person.
It's amazing. In the actual studio, Angela.
Yeah, I feel like a celebrity.
You are a celebrity. And we also have another very exciting guest in this studio with us. I'm not going to tell you the news. I'm going to let Angela. So Angela, who have you brought along with you?
I have brought along my brand new harp, which is right behind us, and I'm so excited. I've only had it for 1 day, so it is brand new. It's part of why I came to Scotland, so getting my new harp. This is a harp that I have dreamed of forever, with all sorts of different specs that I considered and things, and over the years of harping, that's kind of been refined, and I feel like all of those things have come together in this harp, so I'm very excited to finally have it.
Amazing. Now, of course, some people will be out there watching on video and can see your beautiful harp, but some people will only be on audio. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the finish of the harp, obviously the make of the harp, so that those of us who can't see it can get an idea of what it looks like. Although we will share many pictures on social media, won't we?
Yes, there'll be lots of harp spam in my social media for sure. But so this is a Dusty Strings. I've played Dusty Strings on my other harp for a long time, and I just love the sound of Dusty Strings. This is a walnut harp, so it's a lot lighter than my other harp because that's one of the lighter woods, and it has a beautiful soundboard as well. It has Kamak levers and a pickup in. So all the different things I'd need. I also managed to get the legs to go with it to get it to the right height. So lots of different things considered. And of course, it has that beautiful dusty string sound as well.
Exciting. So we have decided to use this episode of the podcast, of course, to tell you about 5 things that we think are really great for you to consider if you are purchasing a new harp. But before we jump into those 5 areas to think about, or 5 top tips, Angela, this new harp's been a long time coming, right? She's been thinking about this harp for a long time. So just tell us a little bit about, when you decided you needed a new harp, why, and why you went for this harp.
Well, it's been quite a long time. I'd say maybe 2.5, 3 years. I knew that I wanted to get a new harp. Like I said, I do play dusty strings already, but it was a very, very old model, almost, 27 years old or something like that. And so the ergonomics of playing that weren't quite fitting my body as I was starting to play more advanced repertoire. And so I felt like it was holding me back. I also regularly carry that harp around, and I just felt like a lighter harp would be helpful. So those were kind of 2 big things that were a niggle point on my previous harp. And this harp was invented only a few years ago, and I kept hearing reviews on it and thinking it ticks those boxes, that it had the great things that I loved about my harp, but with some of these other things kind of being refined as they'd worked on the new harp. So those were, I think those were kind of the big things, making sure that it kind of fit into my body a little bit better, and it was a little bit more portable to be able to move around and just have a lighter harp in general, I thought was a big thing. And also having a harp at the right height. I have so many boxes and things to get my harp to the right height, and chairs. I have like this little collection in my harp room, and it's just really nice to have a harp that kind of has its own stand, and that's kind of once and done. So that was another big consideration as well.
And so this isn't your first harp, by any means, in fact. So it's quite good now, because having played a number of harps, having owned a harp for a long time, it gives you a really good idea of what you're really looking for and what's really, really important to you, right?
Yeah, I think every harp I've had has changed what I thought I wanted. And it does take a really long time. And sometimes I've tried a harp and thought, oh, that's definitely what I want. And then come back and tried it a few months later, and it wasn't for some other reason. So it's definitely something to take your time and consider. And I've definitely done that. I've been thinking about it for a long, long time. So it's very exciting to get to this point now.
And it's a big decision. So if anyone out there is thinking about purchasing a harp, it's not something that is easy done. It's a big decision. It's a big purchase. And so we're going to go through 5 things that we think would be useful for you to think about when you're purchasing your harp. Now, before we jump into those 5 things, we haven't labelled this one, but it's really important to mention that you have to think about your budget. Harps are expensive. They're expensive instruments. And, you don't go out there and break your bank, okay? Don't put yourself in any debt. Don't put yourself in any trouble. So make sure that you know what your budget is. And once you've set that budget, go and don't try any harps over that budget, because you're just going to be tempted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll just feel sad that you're settling for something if you try harps that are outside of your budgets. But there are lots of harps out there, and there's probably a perfect harp for you with your budgets.
Yeah. And if you have set a budget and you do try out, so I guess consider that you might try a harp that is over budget, and how you might feel about waiting and saving, because you've waited and saved, right, Angela, to get the right harp. So it might be a case that that's the right harp for me, but it's not for now, it's for a few years, and I maybe need to rent for a while, or something along those lines, until you can get that dream harp.
Yeah, and don't go out and buy a super expensive harp until you kind of know what you want as well. Just because it's more expensive doesn't mean it's right for you. I think it's taken me a long time to refine what works for me. So I think it's really important to kind of go through that process and give yourself that time.
Yeah. So what should you think about? Well, the first thing we think is a great area for you to study. So area number 1 is harp ergonomics. So thinking about the height of the harp really is the first place that we think you should start with, because and really one step before that is the height of your chair, because you should sit comfortably on your chair with your knees slightly lower than your hips, and then your harp should fit to you. So we don't want to be damaging our bodies. We want to be making sure we're looking after ourselves really well. And so once you have found a seating position that's comfortable for you, you want to then think about how that harp can fit to your height, how the height of the harp can fit appropriately to you on that seat that you're comfortable in. And then after that, we think, thinking about how the harp feels on your body. Some harps have square soundboards. Some harps have, I think the Dusty has an S soundboard. My Kamak harps have a completely rounded soundboard. And all of these feel slightly different on your legs and on your body. So thinking about what feels really comfortable for you. Thinking about the general size of the harp, because Angela and I both have short arms. And this was a problem with your old harp, right?
Yeah, I couldn't reach the bottom strings really easily when I was trying to do more complicated bass playing. Yeah. And that was a big thing that was frustrating me.
Yeah. And it can be painful to try and stretch. And this applies, Angela's just bought a lever harp, but this does also massively apply to pedal harp. Yeah. Because if you're smaller, you're going to have to think about the size of the pedal harp. Almost more so than the lever harp, because it's a large stretch. So you want to think about your size, the harp size against your body, the weight of the harp. Do you want to transport it out the house? Is it going to live in your house? How much are you going to have to carry that harp? And how easy is it for you to transport?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've got a little puppy barking in the background, but we're going to go with it because she's so cute. I don't mind her puppy barks.
She is so cute.
Yes. And what's next?
Well, we could go down a whole rabbit hole on this one, but I'm just going to mention some of the things to consider. We play a string instrument, and so strings are a really important thing to think about. There's lots and lots of different types of strings, from nylon strung to guts to wire strings, and you have the fluorocarbons or the biocarbons. If you're not sure what any of those are, do your research and find out the different types. There's lots of things going for every single one. And there's often innovations that are happening in strings. There's been a lot of new types of strings that have come out in the last 10 years. And harp makers are designing harps specifically for different types of strings. And so they sound ideal with these different types of strings. And there'll be things to think about. The distance between the strings will make a big difference in how you play. Your hand shape and what's comfortable to you and the kind of repertoire you're doing will be affected by the distance and the tension. So those will be things to think about as well and to get to know. And you might need to try lots of different ones to find out what the right fit for you is. And then the number of strings, again, this may be affected by the repertoire that you have. If you want to have extra strings at the bottom, if you want to have extra strings at the top, if you want to have smaller harp, or you want to have a larger harp with more strings, like a pedal harp that plays in an orchestra needs a certain number of strings to play that repertoire. So the number of strings is definitely something to think about. Again, it really depends what kind of harpist you are and what kind of harpist you want to be and what you want to do on that harp. We don't have a standardized instrument. There's millions of different combinations, which means it's one that fits like a glove for you. So find the right strings for your harp.
Great advice, definitely. And what strings are on your new harp?
My new harp is nylon at the top, and then it has a nylon wrapped string kind of near the bottom, and then steel's right at the bottom.
Lovely. Yeah. And my Kamak harps have fluorocarbon alliance strings, and then the wire wrapped strings at the bottom. So it's really a personal choice about what you go for. Now, that leads us perfectly onto sound, because the different type of strings, of course, are going to affect the sound of the harp, and just the different type of wood, the size, all of these factors are going to lead to the harp, different harps having different sounds. And I do want to also say that the same model and the same make and model of one harp, two of those that are the same can sound completely different. So do keep that in mind when you're purchasing a harp, and we would always recommend that you can go and try your harp. It's not always possible. Sometimes you have to order, but if at all possible, if you can try the harp you're thinking about buying, that particular harp, it's a great idea, because Angela's new harp is made from walnut. My harp is made from walnut, but if Angela tried another Dusty strings made from walnut, it's made from a different tree. So they're going to sound different. When I bought my Ulysses, my Kamak, I tried five blacks and I picked that one. They sounded different. So it's important. Now, this is a really big thing. when you are listening to the sound of your harp, make sure that you have someone else who can play it for you, so you can stand back and listen, stand from different positions. And this one's really important because anytime I've been helping someone choose a new harp, this next one is the thing they don't want to do. Play your harp. That kind of sounds like it's a little bit obvious now I'm saying it, but it's so important. You've got to play the harp that you're thinking about purchasing. It's not enough to have someone else play it for you and you listen. The harp sounds different when you're sitting behind it compared to when you're sitting in front of it. It also sounds different when you're playing it compared to when I'm playing it, compared to when Angela's playing it. So you must play the harp that you're thinking about buying and ideally have someone else play it for you.
Yeah, and I'd say even when you're playing it, get someone to record you playing it so you can hear what it sounds like from the front as well. But the experience, we play this amazing instruments, that wash of sound that comes back over you is part of your joy in playing. And some people will find it too overwhelming if it's really big, and some people will really love that. So getting that right experience of playing is really important.
Yeah. And who played your harp for you, Angela?
So Ailey Robertson played my harp for me, which was fantastic. I could listen to her play all day. And then, of course, I got to sit and play with it for a long time as well. And I compared it to a lot of other harps too, to be sure it was the right one. And I kept coming back to it and being like, yes, this feels like home. This is the right one.
Nice. That's awesome. So we've talked a lot about sound. We want to hear your new harp, Angela. What are you going to play?
So I just said it felt like home. So I felt it would be appropriate for me to be playing as my kind of debut performance on this harp. No one's heard anyone play this before.
It's an exclusive How to Harp podcast.
And I'm going to be playing the piece Home. I recorded it just this morning before this. And I must admit, I was still getting used to this harp. I've hardly played it. So I was it is smaller string spacing to what I'm used to. And I was super excited. I was holding my breath and then like breathing really loud. But, you know, this is the live experience, that moment of kind of the joy of discovering the sound of my harp. And I hope that this gives you a little taste of what that's like. So this is Home by Eleanor Dunstan.
That was amazing, Angela. What a beautiful performance.
It's so special to be able to share it in this experience and to be here with you to play it for you. So, yeah, really excited.
Fantastic. And of course, as Angela said, that was Home by Eleanor Dunstan. And she is, in fact, just confirmed this morning, going to be a guest artist in How to Harp in 2026.
I'm really excited about that. I love her compositions and her playing, so I'm going to be totally fangirling when she comes to the membership.
I love fangirling, actually, when people, like, sometimes I get people on just so I can fangirl. Okay, back to our things you should think about when purchasing a harp. So you're going to tell us about some extras.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, there were a couple of upgrades and extras that I did to my harp. So things like considering the levers that you have. A lot of harps come standard with one type of lever, but there's the option to have other kinds of levers with it. And so you want to think about which levers you're used to, maybe, if you have other harps, or what levers, if you're doing lots of lever changes, will they be noisy? Will they be smooth? All those sort of things. So thinking about the kinds of levers that you have is really important. I also put a pickup in mine. I do a lot of recording where I need to plug straight in, and I don't have the luxury, as we know from previous podcasts, of not having the street have ice cream trucks go past. So having the ability to plug in my harp is very useful when I'm recording. And thinking about the stand. Some harps come with stands, some don't. That might or may not be necessary. You can get different boxes and adjust it, or you may prefer to have it all in one. Thinking about case and carrying. If you're never leaving the house, you never need a case. But maybe you do want to transport it quite often. Custom casing and what they have in that may be really important. And then really thinking about the aftercare service. So where you live and what availability there is on regulation for that harp. Is it something you can do yourself? Or is it possible to get that harp maker or that someone who knows those harps to regulate them? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it'll affect the warranty, who you get to regulate it as well. What kind of warranty it has, what kind of aftercare it is. All of those things with servicing are really important. And then just the last thing to think about is the kinds of pedals that you have on the harp as well. And it's really important to think, if you have a pedal harp, really important to think about that. You know, do you want really quiet, really smooth pedals, all that kind of thing. So lots of little extras and little things. You can tell I have looked at all these little things, sort of worked my way through them one at a time. Mm. And I really encourage you to take your time, ask lots of questions. Mm. All my harp friends knew I was looking for a harp because I had so many conversations about all these details with them as I researched. And searching for a harp in community is so much fun. So do get your harp friends involved in that search and listen to what they have to say and hear their ideas as well.
And play their harps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use the excuse to go around and play everyone's harps. And, you know, Angela's bought a new harp, but all of the things we've mentioned today apply to second-hand harps. And you considered a second-hand harp for a while. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a new harp that you're purchasing. In fact, if anything, if you're buying a second-hand harp, it's arguably more important to make sure you play that harp and give it really good play. But yeah, think about these things no matter where you're purchasing your harp from. Now we've come to our final thing to consider, and it's a very quick one to tell you really, and it just comes down to how you feel about the harp and do you love it?
Yeah, I think it's so important to just have that moment where you just like, this is the one.
Yeah.
And you can't describe that. You just know it is or it isn't. And it's different for everyone else. It wasn't what I expected it to be for me. I was expecting to love other harps that just weren't there for me and maybe should have been on paper. So yeah, it's a really personal thing. No one can tell you how to, but when you do, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both Angela and I, we were talking this morning about this. And so I just want to touch on this because we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome. And you might think that we don't, but we do. And the last harp purchase I made was my pedal harp Flow, my Kamak Canopy. And that was a big purchase. It's probably going to be the biggest purchase that me and William make in our entire lifetime. It was a big one. And I fell in love with harp having tried William's here as well. 11 pedal harps? I think it was 11 pedal harps. Keziah was with me playing them. She chose a different one. If she was going to buy, she chose a different model. But I fell in love with this one. And I was scared. I had to go away overnight and think about it. And I kept telling myself, like, oh, you know, You don't need a big fancy harp like this. You know, you could get an Egerie, which is a stunning harp, by the way, beautiful. All of the harps were beautiful. But I'd fallen in love with it. I loved it. But I had to take that time to tell myself, actually, you are a professional harpist. You absolutely deserve the harp that you've fallen in love with. You can afford it. You've talked to your husband about it. You've thought about all of these things. You deserve the harp, and you guys all deserve the harp that you fall in love with as well.
Couldn't agree more.
Huge thanks to Angela for joining me for this episode and for everything she does here in How to Harp. It's been so lovely having her and Chris up here staying with us in Scotland, and we even managed to record a few more in-person podcasts while she was here, so keep your eye out for those coming up over the next couple of months. Next week, we'll be back with another member's story, chatting to learner harpist Kathy Lowe. Kathy has been part of How to Harp for a long time, and she joined us recently at our Scottish retreat earlier this year, along with her husband Rick. And he jumped into the sessions and played a few different instruments. It was so lovely to have him and a few of the other partners joining in and bringing even more variety to the music alongside all the wonderful harps. Now, you might know Kathy from her YouTube channel, Prime Time Harpist, which focuses on people taking up the harp later in life and sharing the joy of learning as an adult. We can't wait for you to hear her story next week. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you are listening. It really helps us to grow and reach more harpists around the world.